I came out of rehab. I made $100 million within 3 years. You're shitting me. Like a few years ago, I was in a court-mandated, shit-run state facility where cockroaches and shit, like it was gross, dude. And it was redirection. It was taking all that bandwidth that you're talking about, that bucket of those thoughts and energy. No longer was I fighting drugs. I was pouring it into something else.
Welcome to the Willpower Podcast. All right, Justin, let's get right into it. So tell me about addiction. What does that mean to you?
Ooh, yeah, that's a personal and topic that I have a lot of experience with. Addiction is, I went through I actually feel like we all have some addictions, and I feel like everybody should go to rehab actually too. That's kind of one of my beliefs. After I went through 6 weeks of rehab, which I'll get into and kind of unpack how, why, and all those things. I really felt, I was a younger person then, but I remember coming out of there thinking like my whole family needs to go, like everybody needs to go, just because it was 6 weeks without distractions. There was no phones. There was no outside input. You know, I got a phone call to my wife once a week after I was there for 3 weeks. You know, so after I'd kind of proven that I was dialed in, then I could be distracted with one phone call. So just that kind of focus and dedication to work on your own psychology and to figure out how your brain works. I loved it. I've been a fan of psychology my whole life. I've loved reading books about that. So to dive into it deeper, not just like a bedside book, you know, on your nightstand, but to actually jump in 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a day working with a team of just unpacking what's going on in your brain, why you do the things you do, what motivates your decision-making process. It was so transformative and so incredible. I'm not that smart, though. I don't think I would have been. I know for sure I wouldn't have gone had I not been compelled to go. So let me back up a few years prior to that. I got married kind of early. Well, not necessarily early, I guess, but quick. I got married quick because my girlfriend at the time called me and said she was pregnant, and I said, okay, let's fast track some of this. So that was kind of the normal thing for me and my beliefs and culture to do, is to do the right thing. So we started those plans, brought this child into the world, and she really was looking for some stability. She always liked the idea of a husband that would be a 401k guy, that he'd carpool to work, and actually she liked the idea of a dentist. And I was like, okay, let me take some chemistry classes in college. Okay, I found out real quick that's not my jam at all. I'm way more I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, you know, and I wanted to work for myself, do my own thing, not really be told what to do. So now I have this battle going on inside. I got this wife, this new baby. My wife really wants stability, wants a guy who's going to be able to provide. And I think some of that is like evolutionary, you know, kicking in. Like now that she's mothering this newborn, she wants somebody that she knows is going to be able to just pay all the bills and take care of this whole thing. Like, we got 20 years ahead of us now. We got to figure out. So that pull against the pull of, I like to be independent. I don't want to be told what to do. And I want to build things and take risks. Like, those were like diametrically opposed in my head, fighting it out. And I'm 23 or 2 or something, you know, I'm just a young dumbass who doesn't really know what I'm doing. And I'm trying to grapple with all of this. Well, my solution was, I was in sales in college, and I was pretty good at it. I could work 10 hours, 15 hours a week and bring in some pretty good cash. So I thought, maybe if I just go full-time in sales, forget all this stuff, I can make enough money to make her feel secure. So that was kind of my plan. And I didn't even really think that through or write it down on a piece of paper or anything. It was just kind of came to the surface. As a result of that plan, I did work more in sales, and I had good weeks and bad weeks. Probably averaged around $100,000, $90,000 a year of income, which was pretty good back in 2000, like year 2000, 2001, 2002. I was doing okay. Thought I was kind of proud of myself, but I was definitely in that environment of high pressure sales, big ticket closing things. There were I mean, it's as stereotypical as you can imagine. I mean, the guys going out to strip clubs, the use of drugs was very prevalent. Sales managers encouraging you to go buy the BMWs and the Mercedes because if you have a $2,000 car payment as a 19-year-old, your ass is showing up to work every day to make that payment and make more sales, right? So that was kind of part of the culture. Again, drugs were a part of that culture, and the one that I could justify to myself was pain pills. Out of everything that everybody was doing, I was like, well, pain pills aren't that bad. I mean, they're from a doctor, so it's probably okay. So we would get in the zone, we called it. And that was an easier way to just kind of get a little bit of an altered state of consciousness to make to just make the job a little bit funner, to pitch these deals, to make sales. And that's what got me started. So I got into pain pills. Little did I know, again, my young dumb ass didn't really think it through, of course, in the beginning, but that substance is some of the most addictive physiologically, biologically, like your body changes chemistry because of the introduction of those chemicals. Your brain stops producing dopamine and endorphins and receptor cells get covered. Like none of this shit I knew. I learned a little bit about it in rehab. But I was really messing up my body big time and my brain chemistry by participating in this. So it went from a pain pill every few days, once in a while, somebody would give me a half of one or one. And then that turned into doing one about every day. And that turned into doing one every, a couple times, just progressively increased to where I couldn't get out of bed unless I had them. And I did not look normal unless I had them. And like the sweats and the shivers and the chills, all that stuff. I tried a dozen times or more to have my wife leave town for a week or two so that I could go through the withdrawal symptoms on my own. But every time she'd be one day away from getting back home, and I'm like, I'm in shambles. I got it. I can't let her see me like this. And I'd go grab some more and just start right back up again. So for a few years, I was going through that process, and I was full on addicted. But my ability to maintain life over those 3 years diminished. My habit increased. My ability to contain and maintain that began to go down. Again, stereotypical as you could imagine. I started robbing from Peter to pay Paul. I started borrowing money here to cover that bill, and then telling one story to a family member to get $500 so I could pay this one, and the whole thing. And again, not that smart. I wasn't super self-aware to where I'm like, better to go do something to get some help. Like I was terrified out of my mind about the idea of having to do something like rehab, because in that state, it really feels like really William that that you trick yourself into thinking you're controlling it all. Like so, I'm in control. And as long as I can tell this story and keep my mouth running, and then go do this, and like if I'm pulling all the puppet strings, I can keep this ruse alive. I can keep everybody in the dark. I can keep my addiction fed, and I'll just keep going on. Now I had a second child come into the picture, so now I got two kids, a wife, and I'm getting to like full-fledged addict mode. Um, then I got in trouble with the law. Not once, not twice, three times in about 4 months period of time. There was a couple of months, and then I went kind of a back-to-back within about a month and a half of each other. I was arrested. The second two times were both felony drug charges with what I had on my possession. And so that was what really pushed my hand. And the lawyer that my mother actually paid for to try to keep me out of prison said, you have one shot at maybe escaping like 5 years in prison. And that's to go to rehab and get your shit like completely, like you got to be beyond reproach, man, if you want any chance of staying out of prison.
Okay, so this is something I've thought about, just hearing different stories of people getting caught up with the law. Like, and one of the, I don't know if you are familiar with, I think it's either Camus or Kafka. I forget which one it is now, but he has a story about a man who is, um, he is put on trial and no one really knows why, and he can't figure it out, and in the end of the book I believe he just kills himself, something like that, because it's just like this like crazy process, and the moral of the story is like the legal system breaks you not by what it does, but because you're just caught in it, you're trapped in it, even if you don't end up being sentence, like you just had 2 years of your life or however long it was. So what was that experience of like recognizing that you were kind of out of control of like your freedom? What's that feeling like?
I mean, it's not good. There's a few layers to that, right? The first is just being incarcerated and being put in jail. And that was probably the first realization. And I liked your question because it's pretty deep, you know? There's not, people don't often think of it that way. But there are layers to this process of losing that freedom and independence. When I was in jail, both the second two, so the first time was just a quick in and out thing. It was no big deal, kind of minor charges relative to the later charges I got. I don't know that anybody would think that, but just again, given the severity of how the next two sets of charges looked, like that first one was like preschool, you know, no big deal. So the second two times, the of those felony charges, I was in the county jail. It was a big facility, and there was a lot of people there. I was in a holding cell with like 16 other dudes in this place when there's a toilet in the middle of the room. I mean, you know, you don't have privacy at all. And now imagine withdrawing from heroin and pain pills in that, like, you need the toilet quite a bit, you know, and you're not feeling good at all. And I mean, I'm saying shivering and just shaking and just you're going through anything you've seen in the movies that portrays that physiological response. I mean, it's true and then some. Okay, I can definitely attest to that. So when your freedom is gone and you're stuck in this holding cell with 16 guys and you have to use the toilet in front of them all, and then you have guards that are coming by and saying like, "How's it feel now, you piece of shit? You love those pain pills now, you loser?" Like, oh, they don't. I mean, it's not like they're, "Oh, can we bring you an aspirin or something?" No, I don't give a fuck. They are happy to see you suffer and watch you using the metal toilet in front of 16 other dudes and just laughing at you as you're puking. And I mean, it's coming out everywhere and your body's in a state of trying not to shut down, really. So yeah, you're doing that with you get nothing. So it's pretty humiliating. But then there's another layer to that, William, and that is which I didn't learn until later, but I realized I lost that independence long before that, when that that substance controlled what I was doing. And I remember the second time I had that feeling. Well, maybe the first time I had it with awareness was a few years after all of this, and I'd start building a business, and I looked pretty good, but I was still addicted to nicotine, right? That was the one vice that I held on to. I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep this one. I'm aware that I'm addicted to it, but I'm going to keep it. And I would have nicotine patches or chewing tobacco or something. And I remember on a vacation with my kids, I have all my kids with me, and I'm going to try to throw in a dip so I can get some of this. And I recognized the connection between these two feelings. Like, on the one hand, there was heroin 5 years previous that just had me by the balls. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I couldn't do anything without having that plan well thought out in advance. But then I recognized that Yellowstone Park, I'm driving an RV with all my family, and I'm pulling into Old Faithful. And before I even turned into the turn that goes into the parking lot to Old Faithful, I remember thinking, okay, wait, if I pull in here, I'm going to do the thing. I'll do like the RV turnaround. I'll drop off the kids and family. They can get out. I can throw in a dip. I go park this big bus back at the back, and then I got to walk all the way up. I can get rid of it, not in front of them. And then I just like chill. It just happened to me again. Chills went up my spine because I'm like, this is the same shit you did with heroin. And I quit chewing within the next couple of weeks. And it was hard. Nicotine it grabs you too. It's a pretty good one. Not the physiological stuff like heroin for sure, but it was a tough one to crack. But I recognized I was planning my moves, my day based on that first. And that's something that I learned in rehab. My first day, when I sat down, there was this old guy named Dr. Bob. And he looked like Santa Claus, big dude, 78 years old, I think at the time, white hair, white beard, but he'd swear at me and say the F word. And like, it was really shocking because I have this like childhood Santa Claus looking image. And then he's telling me to fuck off. It was really weird. So my first day in group there, I was talking about, this is what I do. This is who I am. And I got 2 kids and I'm a good dad to them. And he's like, bullshit. Are you kidding me? You're a piece. Look where you are. You just came at, you're a piece of shit, dad. And I was like, oh yeah, that's actually true. This is not a good dad move. And so that came back to me 45 years later in Yellowstone when I was doing the same thing, rearranging my day and making my moves based on some substance and so that's what addiction to me is. That's a long ass way to get around to your question. Like, what is addiction? It's when you prioritize anything first, and we can have healthy addictions. Maybe it's the gym. Now I go to the gym first. I kind of stack that in my day and I arrange other things around it. So I probably have a little bit of an addiction, but that also feeds me and keeps me a little bit more balanced so that I don't fuck up and get into some of those ways that I know I'm susceptible to.
Was it Dr. Bob Bear by chance?
No.
No. Okay.
No. Simmons, I think, was his last name.
Okay, that would have been a funny coincidence because I was just going to bring up, because you said something about how everyone should go to rehab. And I went to this thing in Texas called Deep Waters. And it's like a weekend.
Sounds familiar.
It's like a weekend experience. You go through all these different like crazy therapeutical different practices and groups and stuff. And a lot of it is recovery focused. Like it's a lot of recovery people. And I've never been in those kind of groups, but I did notice like a lot of them are very much in touch with themselves. And like, it's almost like like they had this addiction, but then because of that addiction, they go into recovery and they end up like ahead of where they would have been without the addiction at all.
Yeah.
And I found that very profound to just be like, these are people who we typically think of as like having a problem, but here they are like further ahead and knowing themselves deeper than most people ever will.
So this is what Dr. Bob said to me along those lines, which changed my life. And this was probably day 3 of rehab. I was there for 45-ish days, about 6 weeks. And day 3, he said to me in group, as I said, I made some kind of comment, and he said, if you get your shit together, you'll get out of here and you'll never be back and you'll never do drugs again. There was 2 other doctors in the room and they both jumped literally out of their chair. And they're like, Bob, Bob, you can't, Bob. And he was 25 years their senior, and he's like, fuck off, I know what I'm doing. He just didn't take shit from anybody. I loved it. And he had my number. He hit me right between the eyes every time he spoke to me. And I just thought, why would he say that? How would he know something like that? And the ability that he had to really just tap into what was going on was fascinating. And his comment then after that, he said, listen, addicts are some of the smartest people in society. They just get fucked up. And he's like, you're one of those guys. If you just get your shit together and you figure out how to know yourself and you stay true to who you are, you'll never experience this shit again. You'll never battle with it. You'll never be back. And you could see the other 2 doctors were just going like, but he ran the show. He put them right back in their place. And they're like, yeah, but I mean, and he's just like, yeah, he just had no patience for them. He's like, I know what I'm doing. And he did. He had like 2 PhDs, 2 master's degrees, and this guy had been doing this. He'd heard every story in the book. But when he said that to me, something clicked, and I thought, I just started reflecting quickly on how much energy and time I'd spent to keep all these lies going, to try to keep my wife in the dark, to keep my family, to keep my church, my community, my neighbors. I had all these things going for years. And that's what he kind of sees. Like, think of that. Think of how long you skirted the law. You've been breaking the law daily for how long? Like, big offenses. I'm like, I actually am pretty good at it, you know? I did get pinched in the end, but I had a pretty good run, you know? And that's what I thought, holy shit, what could I do if I actually just put my energy and attention to something that's productive? So like you said, William, like I do think that that's undirected and unchanneled. Our mind can go amok. And I think those of us that have struggled with that, and maybe that community in Deep Waters you're talking about, are some of those people that may have strayed that way, but then they found their way back. And I think our jails are probably full of other people that are very talented, very capable, but they're stuck and lost in that legal system that's kind of crushing.
Yeah, man. This is super. So I feel like I have the personality to be a drug addict. So like I don't drink at all because I'm like I could easily be an alcoholic.
Okay.
And the closest one, I would say the one I struggle with the most is eating. And so there are like periods of my life where I'm like eating late at night, eating compulsively, sometimes binge eating, not, I would say not to a crazy extent, but definitely like
Mm-hmm.
it's not healthy.
Yeah. Okay.
And I've brought it up to people before, and it doesn't seem like a huge problem because it's not like I'm still in good shape. I'm
Mm-hmm.
still like doing stuff,
Yeah.
but I just have this real like this thing where I'm like I am putting so much energy into like either fighting myself on this, like
Mm.
am I going to eat tonight? Am I not going to eat tonight? I'm going
Okay.
home right now. Am I going to make myself something? Am I going to stop and grab something?
Yep.
There's this whole like internal battle going on, and then there's also just like like all of this mental energy going into this problem. And so I'm like, I see that it's not like destroying me in terms
Mm-hmm.
of like my life isn't falling apart because of me,
Yeah.
eating a
Yeah, right.
midnight snack.
Right.
But
Right.
I also see that there's like a
It's
lot
taking a
of me
bandwidth.
is going into this. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
I definitely agree with what you're saying, that addiction takes over your mind space in a way that sometimes is not recognized.
It does. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And that, just think like we all, so I've heard, I don't know how real this is, but I've heard it again and again and again over my lifetime that the average human being, it's estimated that they have between 65 and 70,000 thoughts every day. But, and the kind of downside of this statistic is that like 99% of these thoughts are the same from one day to the next. So we're just creatures of habit,
Mm-hmm.
and so I guess, I mean, I don't know that I could sit and quantify how many thoughts I have, but obviously they're on all the time. There's a flood of them. There's definitely repetition to them because the same shit comes up again and again and again and again and
Mm-hmm.
again. And so if we have this bucket that is our consciousness, that is these thoughts that come at us or come to us or come through us or whatever it is, and there's 10% of them going to food or 35% of them going to drugs, like what could you do if you replace that? What if you began to diminish it and then deliberately redeployed it back into something else? That's the key, right? And that's what Dr. Bob taught me, that I need, like, the drugs was not, that's why he was so convinced so early on. He just had my number. He knew that the cause of me doing drugs is because really, if you trace it all the way back, it's that I felt inadequate to try to provide for my wife. And there was no way in hell I was ever going to go be a dentist or have a 401k because that's just not who I am. And he waited probably 2 weeks to actually tell me that, even though he like waited, he was gearing me up to it the whole time. So 2 weeks in, I said some dumb thing in a group thing like, I'm just so excited to be sober now and be healthy that I can't wait to get back to my family and kids and be a good dad. And I'll finally know what being a good dad is. I'll do anything to support them. If it means flipping hamburgers at McDonald's, I don't give a shit. I'll be back there. And he's like, you dumb fuck. That was his response. I'm like, what? What? He's like, if you haven't learned, like, I thought you were learning what's going on here. I'm like, I thought I was too. What do you mean? What did I miss? It's like, if you go do dumb shit that doesn't mean anything to you, you will be back in here. And so everything I said in the past, take it back because you'll be back here because you have this knack of finding things to numb yourself from this feeling of not achieving the things that you know you're capable of achieving. So what will you do? You'll fucking go get heroin. You'll be right back in here. You'll probably go to prison for 10 years and then you're fucked if you don't die first. I'm like, okay, wait, run that back again. Let's slow it down a little. But he was right. Like and so the next 4 weeks, the last 4 weeks of my stay there was more about what do I need to do? What can I focus on? William, I came out of rehab. I made $100 million within 3 years. $100 million company. Like, when I was sitting in rehab, I did not dream that big. I did not think that was possible. I had no hopes for that. But three and a half years later, when that company passed, it was right around 100. It's like 98 million bucks or something, right around 100 million. I was just like, "You're shitting me!" Like a few years ago, I was in a court mandated shit run state facility where cockroaches and shit. I'm like, it was gross, dude. And now, and I was just like, wow, that's phenomenal. And it was redirection. It was taking all that bandwidth that you're talking about, that bucket of those thoughts and energy. And no longer was I fighting drugs. Like I was pouring it into something else. I just kept getting better and better and better and better. I'd pause every once in a while and be like, is this shit real? I gotta pinch myself because I was just on a private jet yesterday. Like 3 years ago, I was in the can. I had a guard playing heavy metal music at 2 o'clock in the morning just to fuck with me because he knew that I hadn't slept in 3 weeks. And he was like, how do you like it now, you piece of shit? I'm like, unbelievable. I would have never guessed, never thought. It was amazing.
Incredible. Yeah, I think there's one other phenomenon that goes on here, and there's a good analogy which fits in perfectly here, which is like painkillers, pain pills. Taking a painkiller will like hide a response from your body, right? Like let's say you're sick or something going on, you have a headache, and so you just take something to get rid of the headache. What you're doing is you're hiding like a signal from your body that something is off.
Right. Yep.
So many addictions come from trying to hide some feeling that we don't want to feel. And a lot of the times it's related to some component of your life that you don't feel good about.
Totally.
And so instead of addressing, okay, I should do something about this, I should try to live a life that I feel good about, we go into the addiction because that takes us away. That kind of isolates that, it numbs out that bad feeling.
Yep, for
And
sure.
so I think when you take them away, you're forced to confront the problem. What is the real thing that is not okay, that I don't feel good about? And why don't I feel good about it? What can I do about this?
And if you have, this is where you need the help, in my opinion. Well, you can make a lot faster progress if you're willing, first of all, like if that, what you just said, if you have some basic level of acknowledgement that, hey, something might be going on here I should check out, right? So that's the ingredient number one. Ingredient number two is, for a faster turnaround time, for faster progress, bring somebody in who has experiences navigating that, because your psychology is a slippery son of a bitch, man. Like you will come up with all kinds of cockamamie crazy shit just to keep that thing a little bit further, because it's scary to confront that stuff, right? You feel like vulnerable and scared. And so when you have somebody that like a Dr. Bob that can help you navigate that, who has the experience and the tenure of dealing with it for so long, and he didn't jump into it on day one. He eased into it for 2 weeks and then started going at different things and then helped me to create more of like a recovery plan. It was amazing. And that's where I think you're absolutely right. Like you take a pain pill or even an ibuprofen, you're not solving the cause of the headache, or, if your muscles are sore or something, you're just masking it. And that's what all addictions really, they come to. They keep you busy. I see founders doing this stuff all the time too. Like they'll stay busy, like working on things that actually have no meaning. They're not moving the needle anywhere. They're not helping their business grow, but they stay busy. And then they get to the end of the day and they're like, fuck, everything's just so crazy and chaotic, but I'll have another beer and go to bed and I'm going to go at it again tomorrow. They're busy because there's probably some feeling of inadequacy, fear, like uncertainty, like I just don't even know what to try next. Like there's a lot of that stuff going on, and whatever we use to mask becomes a lot easier to deal with than actually excavating. That's the word I always use, because to me, it's a digging out process. Like you got to dig through a few layers of your brain and your mind and your thought process and your habits, and then you like to become aware of something that is outside of your awareness. It's fucking hard, dude. It's hard, but that work is usually where the rewards are so like exponentially fruitful.
Yeah, so that brings us perfectly into, let's talk about coaching. What do you see that tells you that someone's going to be successful as an entrepreneur? Like what is something that you see in your coaching clients?
Um, well, if somebody has been, most of the people that I coach have been in business for a while.
Mhm.
Uh, and I think and I probably plagiarized this idea from Dr. Bob, where I think that entrepreneurs are special too. Maybe they all need rehab, but they all they all demonstrate these traits of just if you. My wife actually held the mirror up to me to give me this understanding a little bit better. She would say that I don't know how you do it. Like you don't have anybody telling you what to do. You don't have anybody to answer to. You don't have a clock that you have to punch in at a certain time. You don't like nothing. But you get up before anybody else and you go at things like your life fucking depends on it. And the way she says it is, if that were me, I would get up and go sit on the couch and turn on the TV. Like I don't know how, like without some structure, without some guidelines. To me, it seems normal and natural. But then when I look at like the rest of society, there's a whole bunch of people that would just go sit on the couch, or go clock in, do the minimal thing until they can clock out. And so back to your question, if somebody has demonstrated that they have that entrepreneurial streak, they're usually willing to jump in and try to figure things out. Now, this is where entrepreneurs go wrong and where the coaching can help is I call it levels. Like, in fact, I always have this somewhere on my desk. Like I draw this when I'm doing coaching and the top line represents a ceiling. The bottom line represents a floor and the squiggly lines in between are usually somebody's journey that's stuck in level 1. That might be level 2, but that's a thermostat level in my mind. Like, when it's cold, you crank the heat up. When it's warm, you got this area where you kind of want to be in your ideal. But below it, you get uncomfortable. Above it, you get uncomfortable. So founders operate in that same kind of bubble. I have one client. He's been in business for 23 years. And for 20 of those years, he's been between $3 million and $3.1 million. And he's gone like that for 20 years, man. And that's why he came to work with. He's like, I'm 57 or 8 years old. Like, I can't do this shit anymore. I've got to figure out how to break out of this thing and get this business to where I can sell it so I can retire someday. So it often comes. So in his case, it's like, it's not, I know that he has the ability to do it, but the trap that this creates in our mind and in our psychology, that comfort zone, that thermostat, we think that the ingredients that gave us success in level 1 are the same things that will get us to level 2 if we just do more. So you hear people that saying they'll go from 8 hours to 10 hours a day. They'll go from having 5 employees to 9 employees. But they often do not inspect any of the things that are actually contributing to the bottom line that are going to actually give them exponential growth. And I will even submit, William, that there are the things that gave you success in level 1 will actually be detrimental to you in level 2. Because if you just start throwing people at the problem and then you think, okay, I need, there's this common belief that I need an operator to go with my visionary. And so if I get these two together, so people will go out and do what I call unicorn hunting. They're looking for this mythical creature that's going to come in and make everything just bitching. It's just going to solve it all. They'll find somebody whose resume looks really good. Now, as an entrepreneur, one of the gifts and skills that we have is to put lipstick on pigs, right? We can make a shit sandwich look good. And so we'll take a resume and be like, I think this is the person. I think this is it. And we convince ourselves. And again, that comes back to, like my wife says, you take nothing and then you turn it into something as though your life depends on it. We do the same thing with resumes. We do the same thing with job applications. And that's where people screw up. So there's a few frameworks that I like to really lean on as our foundational pieces when I start coaching with people. And that's, hiring in the right sequence, things like this, that really get you out of the mindset of more is not going to help. Because if you do more, you throw in more time and then you hire somebody for 150 grand that you have no idea how to hire. Like you'd have no idea how to manage an operations manager, a CFO or a COO, and you bring that role in thinking it's going to solve the problem. What you're going to do is take a bunch of money off the books because you're paying a salary that you probably couldn't afford. 6 months later, when you haven't learned how to give up control of shit, You haven't done anything to learn delegation. You have zero systems in place. You're now pissed this guy or gal has taken all this cash out of your business and then quit because your business is chaos. You're like, see, it falls on me. And now you're on your way back down to that floor. Now you crank up sales and you're headed back towards the ceiling over the next few months. It happens so many times, right? So that's, if somebody has experienced or demonstrated a year or two in business, I know I can turn it around with them. Because it's just, like, if they'll show up and do what needs to be done, there's no question. It's just showing them a different paradigm. And that usually starts by saying, hey, level 1 was good. Now let's put that shit away and go to level 2, because it has nothing to do with level 1, actually. There's very few things. I guess that's not true, because there are things that the founder does in level 1, which is like they're selling. They are creating relationships. They are the one that are shaking hands. And that's often the thing that founders, like especially technology companies, that's the stuff the founders want to get rid of first. Because most technology guys are like, I'm kind of introverted, so I'm gonna bring somebody in to do sales for me. Weird that it never works, because those guys never care about it like the founder does. So anyway, there's some tried and true systems that can get you from level 1 to level 2, and then pretty soon that ceiling becomes your new floor, because now you're comfortable there. But we're not out of the woods. There's different levels to it, and there's devils to every level, right? So there's something to deal with.
So the reverse side of this, what makes you a good coach? Like, how have you evolved in your time coaching, and what are the qualities that you think make you a good coach?
I think a lot of this I do owe to Dr. Bob and my stint in rehab. And, one of the things that I really liked that kind of aligns, I think, with your mission here with your podcast is that there's front loading some of the difficult work in the beginning can give you exponential returns a little later down the road. And that's something that I learned. I always I was a sales guy for years. That's what got me into the drugs and everything else. But I was pretty good at it because I loved Tony Robbins stuff and Zig Ziglar and all these guys that would always talk about mindset. So when I got on a sales pitch, I tried to sound as much like Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar as I could. I just tried to parrot their messages because I love that stuff. In rehab, I heard a lot of the same messages, but there was a differentiator in rehab that was missing from the Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar stuff, which I think is coming back to your question, which is what helps me coach people to higher levels of success now. And that is the big takeaway is plan for your worst day. So in rehab, they call it a transition plan usually. And I remember this probably 4.5 weeks in, I was getting to the tail end, and I knew that I probably wouldn't be there too long. I didn't have like an exact day to leave, but I'm feeling good. And William, when you leave those substances behind, like there's a biological thing taking place in your body too, where no shit, every day I'd wake up. This happened for 9 months, by the way. I actually kept track. I would wake up and sit up and be like, no, it's better than it was yesterday, man. This is cool. Like I physically felt better every time I woke up, because I went years without a decent night's sleep. And then even just to get sleep, it was all drug induced, so, and I was messed up. So in the rehab, as I'm feeling all this endorphins, like natural endorphins are coming back, and I'm like, holy shit, this is great. They burst my bubble and said, now, you guys are feeling good, And so I was kind of in this little pod of people that were about the same timing as me. They're like, you guys are feeling good. You're healthy. You haven't done drugs in a long time. Now, you're excited to get out and kind of get back into society, right? I'm like, I can't wait to see my kids. It's great. And they're like, hang on, let's do a reality check. What did your kids last see of you? What did your wife see you? And I was like, oh, yeah, she picked me up from a fucking orange jumpsuit and threw me in the car. Like, exactly. She's probably not going to have a ticker tape parade for you when you get out, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, shit. She's probably still pissed. I haven't even talked to her for a while. Like that's kind of a... So they taught me how to prepare for that. And then over the next 2.5 weeks, it was almost all about preparing for your worst days. What are you going to do when those feelings come back? What are you going to do where your default mechanism is, I just better go numb some of this shit because this is getting pretty heavy. It's pretty hard. And damn it, I don't like it. So they gave me tools and resources and metaphors and things to really keep that in mind. And that's what I've brought into my coaching too. So yes, let's definitely look at our picture down the road. What does winning look like in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years? What's the end goal here? Do we want to make an exit from this business? Let's start reverse engineering that. But once we've got that picture in place and we've got a roadmap lined out, where will shit hit the fan? Because it will. I can assure you it's going to hit the fan. And the more tools we have or arrows in our quiver for that day, the better we'll be prepared to not lose our shit when it happens and be like, oh, okay, a little bump in the road. Damn. What arrow am I pulling out of the box here? What am I going to go with to try to solve this, and this? What help do I need? What coach do I need? What advisor do I need to bring in to help me solve this problem and move on to the next one?
Yeah, it's so easy to go into like fuck it mode where like
Totally, right?
okay, something went wrong. With addiction, like food or drugs or whatever it is, it's like, okay, I overate today. Fuck it. I'll just go all in on a binge.
Yep.
Or doing drugs. It's like, if you relapse, you're not just going to stop at the first. Like,
oh yeah. You're not going to take the edge off, man. You're going,
yeah.
You're going all
it's
out.
Like, okay, I did it. I already broke the seal. I might as well just like say, fuck it and go all in.
Yep.
And so I think having those like backstops where it's like, okay, if this happens, if I hit turbulence in whatever way, this is how I react. This is the next step. That was something I did luckily with this podcast, I haven't hit that point yet, but I'm a super like compulsive. I don't know if I have OCD, but I feel like I probably do. And so I posted every single week. And early on, I was like, okay, I'm going to always post every single Wednesday. I'm never going to miss a day or a week. And then I realized like, okay, but what happens if you do miss a week? Because like there's a part of me that if I missed a week, I might just say fuck it and just podcast is over. This is wrap it up. We missed the week.
Yep.
It's done. And so I wrote down like, okay, this is the plan. If I ever miss a week, it's immediately just okay, post again next week, right back on the wagon. So I think having those, and again, luckily I haven't had that happen, but I know exactly what I do if that does happen for whatever reason.
Dude, that's so powerful.
Those backstops.
That is so powerful. That's so good. So I'm thinking of two things. One, just recently, like with Thanksgiving, I had all my kids back and we were doing things and we went out. They wanted to play pool one night. So we found this place to play pool. I'm like, I'm going to get them pizzas and like I'll get DoorDash and bring some like, I knew there was a Dairy Queen down the road. And so I bring all this shit food, right? And I said, fuck it. I'm like, I'm just going to have it all. So I'm eating pizza and, I was all out for that. And I felt it the next day. I was like, man, that was trouble. That makes me think of my brother. I have a brother who's passed, the closest one to me in age. He died in an accident like 5 years ago. And because he was the fuck it kind of guy. Like he had on his garage wall, like the 12-foot wall, he had a sticker that said "Go Huge." And it was from floor to ceiling, these big block letters. And that was how he lived life, which can work out really well. But he never got the opportunity to hang out with Dr. Bob. And if he would have, he'd probably still be alive and he'd be filthy rich because he had all those tendencies, but he didn't learn how to harness the fuck it mentality. Like, that's what my wife is talking about when she says, you go at it. Like I get up, put the blinders on, I'm like, fuck it, I'm going. So you can use it as a skill and as a resource, but if you can figure out how to bring it into balance with backstops, like you said, so you don't get destructive off the rails, see these similar patterns. You see them in addicts. You see them in entrepreneurs. Like there's a prevalence here, and that tendency. Maybe it's like the desire to live life in extremes or something. I don't know, but you know that you have this tendency that if you missed a week, so you have a transition or a backup plan, so you know, like you've got some guardrails, and that's a lot of what I do with coaching too. Okay, if we got this, what are our guardrails? How are we going to get back on track? And I had a call from a client 2 weeks ago, and he got a call from his accountant, and he was like, you got to fire a bunch of people or like you're not going to make it. Your finances are in shambles. And I just started working with this guy, and he calls me in a panic. He's like, I'm not going to lose the business for this. And I'm like, hold the fuck on, dude. Like, this is just a simple numbers thing, and you're talking about losing the business and going bankrupt. Like, he was in a fuck it mode. And I'm like, just stay chill. We're going to work through this. We're just going to write down everybody's names, and we're going to go through this exercise, and we're going to score them on a grade of 1 to 10. Not how much you like them or revenue. How much revenue does this person bring in? You got to make some tough decisions. And that sucks for you, but And that was on a Saturday. I took a call with him on a Saturday. Monday afternoon, he's like, "Oh yeah, it's good. I laid off 5 people and everything's cool." But on Saturday, he was like, "The world is ending. The business is gone. I've ran this thing for almost 30 years." And I'm like, "Dude, no, you're in bucket mode and you need to chill."
It's gonna be all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's change topics again. So I have a mobile app called Grooves that the point of it is to measure habits and to basically track habits and measure the impacts of them.
Okay.
So with that in mind, I'm curious, what do you have a top ROI habit, like an underrated habit that you do that you feel like has an outsized impact on you?
Oh yeah, dude. I think I have a few of those. So let me start with the maybe a less obvious one that might be some good, hopefully useful to some of your listeners, and that is, I start my day. I have this whole like kind of morning thing that I do just to get my mind kind of chill and settled. So I'll start with that. I think you invest some time into your mind. Okay, first of all, you put 30 minutes into just your mind, where you're not trying to accomplish shit. You don't need to get things done. Your goal with that 30 minutes is to quiet the chatter, just be present, and to give whether you're reading a book or you're meditating, you're sitting around going home, whatever it is that floats your boat, do something. To me, that tells the universe, to God, that, hey, I value this thing in between my ears that helps me with everything in my life, and I'm going to prioritize it. So maybe that's one. Two is, after I do my little morning routine and rituals, which has a little bit of exercise, a little bit of reading, a little bit of quiet time, I then sit down and say this: what is the single most important thing that I can do this day to move me closer to the life that I have imagined for myself and my family? I ask that of myself every day. I got a little book that I keep track of it in right here. And so it's just one line. Dude, and some days it's like, my line is this big and I have to cross it out. I'm like, not 17 things, man. What's the single thing? Because that's what I do. I make shit complicated, right? Mm-hmm. So I put an X through it and I just write down one. And just having that singular focus, that clarity as an anchor to come back to, so that when shit starts, it's kind of like those guardrails, like the podcast, if I don't post on a Wednesday, what am I going to do? This is a similar concept to that for me, where I know that regardless of what hits the fan, I come back to that. If my day gets chaotic, if my tendencies of creating chaos and complexity, which I do big time, if those start to creep in, I come back to, what is that single driver for today? And that just is like my North Star. It's like my go-to place. So that's a big one for me. I'd say third on the list is probably just taking care of, I got four, so I'm going to say two more. Mm-hmm. Physical activity. You got to do something physically. I think movement is key. And when we sit lethargically and just, they're sedentary, our lives are just sedentary now. You think of this, like, we've made all of these advancements. Hundreds of years ago, we worked our ass off physically all day long. And there wasn't any of the sickness and cancers and anything that we have now today. And now we have all these advancements in wealth, but that allows us to sit on this computer all day and all we move is our fingers. And now we're sick, we need medicines and all these crazy things. And if we counterbalance that with just intentional movement, go to the gym. I like to work out and I like to get steps in. Those are my two kind of things. And that gives me, it just helps me keep my head out of my ass too, if I'm being honest, because it keeps the endorphins going. It keeps my energy high. It doesn't get me hurting and sore to where it's like just basic things kind of take the energy out. And it's like, oh, I'm winded and tired because I walked down the hall, and I know people like this. So I think movement is key. And then the last thing is bringing outside input into my brain every single day. Listening to podcasts. I think reading is important because it's harder. You can consume kind of mindlessly if you're just listening. Just my opinion. So I do that too, but I also like to read at least a minimum of 10 pages in a nonfiction book every day. I think that if people will do that, they'll not get too far off course, because it gives them it's another one of these anchors that brings them back to center, where it's like, wait, my life and that book, how is it so far? It creates these different thoughts that bring you different questions and different insights. that if you're not and you just live in your head and you're consuming media, that you can, I know people that are single that live alone and that, dude, they're fucking crazy because they don't talk to people. There's nobody to challenge them. They're not reading books. They're not bringing in new ideas. It's their same baked ideas that they think are normal. I'm like, dude, you're not fucking normal at all. You're crazy. You know? So those are the 4 things that I think I would say that are kind of my highest leverage return on investment.
Okay. I like them all. I think the one, to tie back to something you said earlier, you were talking about entrepreneurs just like getting caught up in busyness traps.
Yeah.
And I think that is in avoidance of the question you ask yourself, which is, what's the single most important thing I can do today? And I've gone through this experience myself where I'm like just working on like bullshit and like having so many different things in my head that I'm like, oh, I need to do this. I need to do this. I need to do this. And never actually just being like, okay, what's the thing that's really going to move the needle? Like what's the highest ROI action I can take right now? And it's just because I'm avoiding that question. And I don't know why. I don't know why there's like so much friction to just sitting down and being like, okay, let me just take like 2 minutes to just focus on this one question. But it's challenging.
Well, I think the reason is, William, because often the answer to that question is to create something, and that creation is vulnerable. And so if you get in this habit of like checking your emails, and that's the thing that you go back to because they're always there, you may use 2 or 3 hours a day to check your emails and respond to emails, because that keeps you from the work of actually creating something where you might create something that sucks. And your brain knows that. And you know that you might release this podcast and it tanks and people are like, that's fucking terrible, dude.
Yep.
So we avoid that sort of rejection at all costs. I mean, I've had dozens and dozens of salespeople work for, maybe hundreds work for me. And you'd go nuts with the kinds of excuses that come to the surface to avoid picking up the phone and making the next phone call. And it boils down to the fact that you just don't want to be told, no, you suck and leave me alone. So simple, basic things for somebody like that is you get a jar of beans or something and marbles, and you have to empty one jar into the next before you can go home. So that you trick yourself into, I'm not making a call that I'm probably going to get rejected on. I am making this down so I can take one of those marbles and drop it in the other jar. Because as soon as I get the jar done, I can go home. So some people say it this way, get 100 no's a day. Right? So they're not trying to get a yes. They're just like, okay, I'm going to race through 100 no's. I'm going to get 100 people to tell me no today, because they're trying to rewire their brain to be like, fuck you, rejection. I'm not scared of you. I'm going to try to get you 100 times. And that's what it boils down to, is we all just have this little child inside, I guess, that feels scared and vulnerable. And I'm not saying it because I don't have it. I do this shit all day long. I hire coaches and therapists and read books to try to overcome it because it just won't go away. But the better we get at recognizing and acknowledging it and creating those containers and those guardrails, like you mentioned, having that transition plan, like that's what, when I started building this business out of rehab that I'd started then, and I got about 1.5 years in and I was doing well. I realized that I was wearing all the hats. I thought I'm probably going to clear around a couple $100,000, I think. And so I'm like, dude, that's more money than I've ever made. This is sweet. But I also was working 7 days a week. Some of those days I was working 20 hours. On Sundays I was only working like 6 or 7. But still, that's a Sunday, And I'm like, okay, my kids are getting bigger. I got another kid on the way. I can't keep it going this way at this pace. So I thought I was going to turn it down a little bit. My clients were like, okay, we'll find somebody else. I was like, whoa, hold on, hang on, never mind, just kidding. Forget that even happened. It's all good. Once again, I'm not that smart. Like I said, I was forced to go into rehab, which is what taught me all these lessons. My clients kind of forced me to I had to grow, because I had this belief, I'm either going to grow or I'm going to die. They will literally leave me. And so I had to start looking for ways to grow. And that's when I started to look for people. Who's ahead of me in this journey? Who's climbing this mountain too, but they're way up at the top because I'm down at the bottom and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So, and that's where I started finding coaches and mentors and people to help me. And that's when I learned how to use some of their systems and develop it into a bit of my own system that I knew I couldn't work 20 hours a day. I had my 3rd child on the way. I just come from these 5 years of like absolute just a mess. And it's a shock that my wife is still with me, that I'm not just, that I'm still alive even. So I knew I wanted to do things different. And that's what started to create this new basis that I really bring into my coaching, which is just the founder freedom method. Like, and again, not that smart, but I had people who had done it. And I took multiple people that were way up further ahead in that journey. And they said, well, this is how you hire people. This is the way that you manage those people. Once you get to a team of this, you have to do. And these are all things that I had no idea. I was running a marketing agency and I'm like, I just know how to get stuff to sell and I know how to find places for these ads to go. And I've got all these networks I'm connected. They're like, yeah, you're brilliant with all that stuff, but you're fucked when it comes to your systems. You have no idea how to manage and mitigate your tax burden. And that's where I realized everything that got me success in level 1 is not going to help me in level 2, and that's when I started to reallocate my calendar space. And that's where, like, I have a founder freedom playbook that I operate that are the key traits of what transition, the kind of mindset flip you have to start making. That's what I give every one of my clients. And I don't know if you have entrepreneurs that listen to the show here, but if there's people in business, like, I'd be happy to share that with anybody that is listening. Just come grab me on Instagram. It's a Google Doc. I send it to all my clients. You can have it. Just message me playbook and I'll send you the Founder Freedom Playbook to kind of help you see, am I stuck in level 1? And what might I do to sort of make that transition to level 2? And you'll be surprised. It's not, again, I'm not a super smart guy. I was fresh out of jail and rehab, but if I see a blueprint that works and I follow A to B, B to C, I can follow a map. You know what I mean? And that's all this is.
Okay, Justin, we talked a lot about past struggles you've gone through. What is something you're currently struggling with?
Well, I was telling you about that binge eating the other night. I guess that's one thing. I don't know if that's a real struggle, but I do like, I've been working a lot on fitness this year. I've got kids, I've got boys, a 21-year-old and a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old. But my 2 older boys, they look, they're like perfect specimens of health. And for the last couple of years, they're like, when are you going to get a 6-pack, Dad? And you're kind of pudgy around the middle. I'm like, thank you guys, come on. So this year I'm like, okay, maybe I will. That's something that I've been working on. I don't know if it's something I'm struggling with, but it's been an interesting journey. I've gone from 30%, maybe 28% body fat down to 7.5% in the last year and a half. I'm in better shape now at 46-ish years old, 47 something, than I've been ever in my life. And so seeing, like, applying some of these principles, and I was never super out of shape. I was just soft, like, it's not, I was the guy that I'd run out into left field to catch a ball for my boys. And by the time I got to third base, I'm like, okay, just a sec, and so now those are things that I'm transitioning out of and that are in my past. And it's like, that feels good. I'm really just applying the same things that I've been doing in business and coaching founders on. I'm just putting it into, like, tracking my food, meal prep. That's one. Like, I hate meal prep. I realized early this year that in order to hit the targets that I'd set out for the year, meal prep was going to be critical. It was essential. I had to do it. I did it once where I'm like, fuck this. I absolutely hate it. My back was hurting as I'm standing in the kitchen and I'm trying to measure food and put it on the scale. And I started cursing and yelling. My wife's like, well, this is going to be pleasant. And I'm like, no, this has got to end. And I'm like, what am I doing? This is just like running a business, man. I grabbed my tripod, I threw my phone on it like this, and then I finished my meal prep for the day. I came into work the next day. I'm like, hey guys, put an ad out on Facebook and tell them I need somebody to come work a few hours a week. Now I have a girl come over to my house and goes to college here. She comes over twice a week for 2 hours, $15 an hour. So we're talking about like $60 a week. And every one of my meals is in here. Like, I got 2,400 calories right there. Macros are dialed in perfectly. I don't have to think about it. All I have to do is empty that box every day, and I'm eating like a machine. And it's fantastic. And then I have her start mopping the floor, and then maybe clean the bathroom once in a while. And my wife's like, hey, did you mop the floor? I'm like, yes, that was me. At least I'm responsible for it. And so sometimes we miss those things. And I almost, that's what I teach people to do in their business. And I was missing it for a minute. But the leverage you can get is just phenomenal. So I'm always, that's something I continue to work on, is where can I get more leverage? How can I leverage different things for higher output? I just want independence. I want freedom. I want to get 7% body fat and have the discipline to do that. But I want fucking meal prep, dude. That sucks. What else? One of the things, I sold off some of the different things that I was working on this year. And I used to have a bookkeeping business and payroll company, and I had a bunch of accountants working for me. And I got rid of a bunch of that. And now it's just like a half a dozen of us. Just my goal is to go all in on media to share the message, because I feel like I've gone through this crazy colored past, and I really feel like I want that to benefit other people. Whether it's from some tax strategy. Again, I could go off on all these tangents, but I'll stay focused. I want to share that message with, whether it's people in addiction, entrepreneurs that don't know what to think about tax. Like right now, they should be thinking about their taxes. It's December 3rd. You have 4 weeks to affect your tax strategy for 2025. In 5 weeks, there's not a fucking thing you can do about it. So look now, call your accountant today and say, where am I at? What am I doing? I just want to share that message, and I know that content is the only way that I can at scale. So again, this year I started to think I got to go in on content. I got to do podcasts. I got to get on Instagram. I didn't even have Instagram until 2024. Like 0 times had I logged in. And now I'm trying to make videos 2 times every day. That has been hard for me to talk to a camera and be like, oh, wow, you look like an asshole. What are you doing? That's and overcoming some of that, just because it's not about me and how I look. It's about, I've got this experience and I've got 25 years of crazy shit that I've gone through. And I had a conversation about taxes with a couple who's running a business. They've been in business for a while, and they got 5 kids. So this Christmas is coming up. They have Thanksgiving, and I just had a conversation with them. I'm like, this is where you're at. This is what your P&L says. This is what your W-2 wages have been this year so far. So you're going to be in the top income bracket, which means if nothing changes and you finish this year, you're going to write a check to the IRS for around 30 grand and to your state for around 10 grand. So you're looking at a $40,000 bill next year. And they're like, wait, what? I said, do you need anything for the business? They're like, yes, our vehicle is old. We're probably going to get one in the next 6 months or so. I'm like, you're going to get one now, and it's going to be over 6,000 pounds. Now call your accountant and make sure that works. And now they're going to accelerate all that depreciation, and they're going to get a $20,000 refund most likely. So it went from $40,000 of a debt to pay to the government to a new car, a new truck, and a $20,000 refund they're starting the year with next year with more capital and the resource they need in their business. That's such high leverage. You know what I mean, William? I'm not a CPA. I don't know all the tax stuff, but just that I had that experience and could communicate that to them. That's where I need more people to know that, because that could have been the difference of them expanding next year or going out of business, or maybe they had to lay off a few people. It's a huge difference for just one little teeny tiny bit of knowledge that they didn't have yet.
So much, and I feel like that's just a black box for a lot of people, myself included.
Yeah. And that's what the founders, so again, back to some of these principles you talked about. So what do? We tend to avoid, we tend to numb. So here's this black box of stuff. We don't really know anything about it. In our mind, we put this lipstick on the pig. We're like, it's going to be this big thing. And we make it more complicated and more complex than it needs to be. And so we start thinking about taxes, and pretty soon we have this idea somehow in our brain that in order to think about taxes, we need to be a CPA. We got to have a couple master's degrees. It's like, oh shit, that's going to take me forever. I'll just ignore it. That's what I'll do. I'll wait until April 14th. That's our strategy. Yep. And there is a different strategy. And I know that very intimately, because that was my strategy for a decade. I totally did that strategy until I realized I can learn this much this year. And that might just be one phone. So here's another good takeaway for anybody listening that's maybe this is resonating with. Get on your phone right now and schedule an appointment with your CPA 4 times a year. I promise you, I don't care what you're going to talk about. Don't give me your shit about, I don't know. I don't really know what to say. Just schedule it and talk to them. What will happen will blow your mind. You will save money and you will become way smarter over the next year than if you just keep that April 14th strategy. That's what I do. It's one of my strategies. I was talking to my CPA about my wife running the car off the road. And there was the first snowstorm of the year. This was many years ago. It was like this much, dude. It was a skiff of snow. She takes this car that we're about to turn in from a lease, an expedition. Brand, like, it's been a 2-year lease. We're turning it in like 2-3 days later or something. She slips, hits a mailbox, and does damage to the front, the side, and the back. I'm like, how'd you even do that? Like, did you deliberately? I don't even. Did you get out and then back into it again when you were done? Like, how the hell? So this car that we were about to turn in now has $18,000 worth of damage. And I'm just lamenting the story, just like I am to you, to my CPA on my quarterly call. And he's like, wait a minute. Is that the SUV that this company leases? And I said, yeah, that's the one, Paul. Fuck, can you believe that? And he's like, whoa, what are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know. What do you mean? What am I going to do? He's like, are you buying a new car? He's like, well, because you got this. And then he starts rattling shit off. I'm like, whoa, I don't know what you're talking about, dude. What are you saying? He's like, if you buy another car and take delivery before the end of the year and it's the business vehicle, you're going to be able to accelerate the depreciation. You will take this marginal tax rate, drop it to say like $25,000. And I'm like, honey, good job on that wreck. That was top shelf, man. And that's how I learned that whole process. So without the phone call, it would have just been a pain in my ass. But with the phone call, I saved tons of money. And now I learned that and I've shared it with whoever's listening here too, in addition to the people that I mentioned just a minute ago.
What does your dream life look like?
Not too different than this, honestly. I really want to share. I want to be able to share the messages that can help people avoid some of the challenges that I paid some high tuition bills. You know, a lot of legal fees, a lot of time in jail, time in rehab. Like there's hope for people, and there's, like we were talking about early on, like the addicts of the world sometimes are those that are the sharpest among us. So don't feel hopeless. And I think my ideal life is really just spending more of my time doing that and helping people recognize that there's always a better way. You don't have to have all the answers. And the excavation of digging things out of the inside that we're trying to avoid, it's worth the effort. So put the work in.
I love it, man. Thank you, Justin. I appreciate you for coming on and, spending your time.
Yeah, man.
To talk to me and the audience.
It's been fun. I appreciate you having me. Thanks a lot.
Of course. All right. First tell everyone where they can find you.
Best place if you want to connect is probably Instagram. Come find me at It's Justin Lund. And I'm on TikTok and LinkedIn and all the other places too. Same handle on most of those, I think. But yeah, if there's anything I can do for you, I respond to all the DMs, all the comments. So if there's anything that you need that I can help with, happy to. If there's content that you don't see that you think you should, please let me know. I'd love to produce and create something that that creates value.
Awesome. Thank you again, man.
You got it. Thanks.